Welcome to the Outlaw Radio Show. My name is Zach Adams, and I pastor a church located just outside of Athens, Georgia. The name of the church is Calvary 316. If you're local, come hang out with us one Sunday morning. Our service is at 10:30. We're located off of Highway 316. You can learn all about the church by going to calvary316.com. If you're not local but looking for a good church, you can watch online. We live stream our Sunday service, again, 10:30 Sunday mornings. Easiest way to find us is to go to calvary316.live. That is a quick link to our YouTube channel, and you can watch our service. So encourage you to check out all of that. I am joined in studio by the man that needs no introduction. He's rocking his own branded beanie.
I sure am.
Mr. Creighton Vaughn, how you doing? Yeah, you got a
Creighton branded beanie.
It's the Creighton for Creighton College, right? But
Creighton
it's just
University.
Creighton University, but it works for you, right?
Yes, it does. It works for me. They spell it the same way. I'm a big fan of the color blue, so it works very well.
And you got that kind of blue hue behind you. You got the beanie, very wintry.
Like I am very wintry because we're past Christmas and we're looking towards summer, so I can be a little bit happier now.
You're looking towards summer. I've been
looking towards summer for 3 months now.
Understood. No,
Winter started 10 days ago, and I'm looking forward.
It's cold. Well, also joined in studio by our two buddies. We've got Oregon Dexter, Mr. Isaac. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great. Not wearing my flannel today, sadly, and I also didn't bring my gift of a half-open bag of chips, but next week I will for sure. Glad to
that
be
was
here.
something that no one knew happened 2 weeks ago, except for if you were here.
Yeah, and if anyone is looking for some elotes chips, I have a half-eaten
Isaac
bag.
brought this big bag of chips that were half-eaten and stale.
They were not stale.
As like,
fair.
hey guys, I'm bringing you something to share tonight. Nobody.
I don't think they were half-eaten. I think they were like less than a quarter eaten.
And I got home and Alexis is like, that was the weirdest thing to do. And I was like, listen, I am not gonna waste food.
That's kind of my go-to.
Right. I just figure there's got to be in every group of guys one guy that just,
the giver.
Well, there's a giver and then there's a receiver. Okay, there's a giving tree and there's a receiving tree. And what I'm trying to say,
that was one way around it there,
is that people some people just don't waste food. And I was hoping one of you guys were one of those people, and I was wrong. So no one appreciated my half-eaten bag of chips.
Also joined in studio by Spice Daddy.
Howdy.
I will say Spice Daddy, his ego is really starting to implode. You came in the star of the show.
It's exploding still. Hasn't imploded yet. He's still riding high.
It's still riding high.
Yeah, I'm in a new chair now, and I don't know. I'm not as relaxed as I normally am.
No, I like it though. This is you're not sprawled out on the couch.
I'm not, and the main problem is most of the audience can't see it right now. But if they had a wide angle shot, the reason why I originally sat on the couch was because anybody that sat next to me looked like a dwarf sitting next to me, and it just worked out. And now I'm off the couch like the island. So
yeah. We're trying to keep you on your toes.
I know.
Trying to keep it fresh.
I like being fresh.
How was your Christmas? How was your New Year?
Christmas was good. It was a long week. A lot of stuff happened. Some good, some bad. And New Year's was good. Hung out with some good friends of mine.
Right on.
Yep.
Right on. How was your Christmas, your New Year's, Isaac?
It was good. I drove down to Florida, which was the longest / most dangerous drive I've ever had in my life, and I've driven across the country twice.
What made it dangerous?
Well,
old people.
Just Florida drivers?
Yeah, it's like everyone's like, "Oh, go to Florida. It's the best place." No, it's not. But what made it dangerous is that people on the freeway would be going 90, which was me. I was people. Okay. And then all of a sudden, the people would just stop. I mean, immediately. And so if you took your eyes off the road for 1 second, which I do quite frequently, there's like
1 second at a time.
1 second at a time, and I remember looking over at a billboard because there's like 1,000 of them now every second. And
Breaking news, billboards.
Yeah, there's billboards now, guys. And so I looked back and Alexis is like, stop. And I just looked forward, and that happened several times. But here's the thing. It was for no apparent reason. There was no cop. There was no
Alligator.
There was definitely no alligators. I would have appreciated that, actually. Or maybe even a large sea turtle. But
would have been in a dangerous place, a gigantic sea turtle.
Right. But no, the trip down there was fun. But yeah, it was nice to see Alexis's mom and Sean. So
we are in. This is the first episode of 2024, which is really quite a bizarre thing, honestly. I was thinking about that today. It's 2024.
I turned 31 in like 45 days.
It's weird. It's just 2024. I just kind of have a hard time. We're in the roaring 20s, right? But just strange. And so first episode of the year. Very excited about what the Lord has in store for the Outlaw Radio Show. Trying out some new things. A little bit of a new twist to the studio here. Trying to add some backlighting, a little bit of textured. Again, moving Spice Daddy to a new chair. Also, one of the things that was kind of has been brought to our attention. So the way that this show works is we're recording a podcast that gets released on Thursday. That's actually kind of changing. Not that the podcast isn't going to be released on Thursday, but the show really isn't about recording a podcast. So this is more of a YouTube show that gets podcasted versus a podcast that gets live streamed. And so we were kind of making that subtle change. Not really going to affect the content, I wouldn't say, Creighton. You were kind of the one that brought this to my attention. Why are we kind of making that change in branding and perspective?
I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it's actually the way that most of these kinds of quote unquote podcasts work these days. Like, I don't know very many people that actually listen to podcasts on a podcasting app. Most people now just watch a YouTube version of the podcast anyway. So we're just transitioning more to focus more towards YouTube. We're going to try and get some shorts out. Try and get more into the YouTube ecosystem and tailor ourselves more to that. What's the word for the big math thing that
algorithm?
Algorithm. Thank you. Try and tailor ourselves a little bit more towards the algorithm in terms of the way that we are presenting our content, not our actual content.
All we need to do is get Pfizer to sponsor us, and then, I mean, you know what I mean?
Dude, that's exactly what we need.
Pfizer or Moderna, either
or
one.
My Pillow.
My Pillow, Mike Lindell. We're still here, Mike. Let me say this though: is that if you enjoy the podcast, if you listen to the podcast, if you've never watched the Outlaw Radio Show, and you get the podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, and you're hearing what's being said, nothing changes for you at all. Not even in the slightest. And
nothing changes for the podcasters at all.
There's a lot of people that do listen to the podcast, but just as far as just the mediums go, like the Joe Rogan show is podcasted, but at the same time, like it's Spotify. So he makes most of his money through his big Spotify contract, but like most people consume Joe Rogan mostly in shorts, like short bites, not even the full show on YouTube.
Yes.
And so we're going to be this year experimenting around just with some more mediums.
Trying to extend our reach a little bit. Maybe, if we could actually turn a profit from this, it would mean that we could spend more time on it. We could do more things. We could do all kinds of stuff.
Oh, we are absolutely the epitome of a nonprofit entity. So we
don't make nothing.
We have made nothing, and we do this because Jesus tells us to. But again, that's kind of one of the changes coming in 2024, which we're excited about. One of the other things, and this is active right now, is that one of the fun aspects of the show is the ability to interact with the audience. And hey, Happy New Year! We would love to hear from you about your New Year's resolution, things that you're looking forward to for this year. Up until now, the main medium for that has been the comment section on both our YouTube channel, which is outlawradio.live, or our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/theradiooutlaw. So up until this point, you've been able to leave comments, feedback, drop questions, say hello on the threads to both of the live streams. Problem with that is that sometimes there's a delay and how those get to us. Creighton, you monitor those in real time, right?
Yes, I do.
But there's a bit of a lag, right?
Yes.
And so that, it's hard to sometimes engage in the moment. And not only that, but I would also say that sometimes people might have a question or they want to drop a comment. But in a public format like that, a forum like that, there might be a little bit of hesitation to really, like, hey, I'm curious about this, but I don't want to put my name to this. There's that component to it.
Or I just don't want to put my name in a public comment section at all.
At all.
And first, I would just say to that, don't have your name on YouTube, is what I would say.
Anonymous accounts are easy to make.
Anonymous accounts are easy to make. You can always, and this is not a new wrinkle, you can always submit an email. You can drop us an email at popecreighton@gmail.com. Again, popecreighton@gmail.com. But again, that's not like in real time. We get those things after the fact. But what we have implemented starting right now is we have a phone number. It's actually our church line. It's a Google number, 678-883-3316. Again, 678-883-3316 is an open text message. So Justin actually has a phone that's got the number built into it. And so if you're wanting to submit any type of a thought, question, comment, feedback, and you want it more immediate, you can send a text message instead of dropping something into a public forum. And so,
or if you're, listening to the podcast or watching later on and you want to send a comment for the same exact reasons, it'll be open all the time because it is our church number.
Yes. And again, that is 678-883-3316.
And you can find those in the comments on both Facebook and YouTube. I added that as well.
You added that. Great. Well, with all that being said, kind of a little housekeeping there. You guys have any resolutions? Anything for you guys looking at a new year? Things that you're wanting to... I was listening to sports radio, and this guy was getting railed because I guess he's a big New Year's resolution type of guy, and they were making fun of him because it was like, yeah, you're gonna quit these resolutions, like everyone else by like middle of February. And he made an interesting point. He goes, so what? At least I'm trying. At least I'm trying. You're right. I'm going to probably fail and I'll probably quit, but at least I'm going into the year trying to be better.
At least he did it for a month.
At least he did it for a month. Right. I, a couple of years ago, wanted to lose some weight. And I nailed it. I went from 185 to 125 in like
say you kind of
2.5 months. Oh, I was doing great. I lost a lot of weight, but as with most resolutions, I've added it all back since. Most of it has been a good thing.
Yeah,
a healthy
thank the
thing.
Lord.
Yeah, thank the Lord. And so, by the way, is tomorrow, January 4th, will be officially 2 years since I went to the hospital.
My goodness,
which
that's
is
wild.
bonkers. Isn't that bonkers? 2 years since paramedics showed up at my house, and I began a very interesting, unexpected journey that still has me here, which is wonderful. But 2 years. So for me, man, I'm loving life. I'm so excited about another year. I'm excited about all the things that we've got planned for my children and some of the exciting experiences. You get to a point in life, where you start, like, I don't want to say living vicariously through your kids, but like finding yourself having an immense amount of joy by your kids experiencing new things. And my son Quincy has a big baseball tournament, so we're going to be going this summer to Cooperstown. He's going to be playing at Cooperstown. We're going to get to see the Baseball Hall of Fame. Just a lot of things. We got a beach trip planned. We've got just a lot of stuff. This will be a pretty crazy year of transition for my family with education and school, and Mabel will be starting kindergarten in August.
Oh my goodness.
So I mean, we're in a really fun season of. My dad asked me at New Year's. He goes, you got any kind of resolutions for the church? And I really, it's not a cop out, but it's like, no, I don't really have any big plans. I'm just really excited to just keep, like, just that simple obedience, that simple life, that just the simplicity of things. Like, I don't need to change everything. I don't need to have major adjustments. Like, I've kind of had some of those, imposed on me over the last few years. Like, I'm just really excited to have again, normalcy. Now, I think 2024, for other reasons, will be pretty far from normal. This is an election year. We got some crazy things, I think, on the horizon as far as our country goes. But as far as me personally in the church, man, just that steady faithfulness. Eugene Peterson wrote a book, Simple Obedience, in the same direction, I think. I forget what the name of the book is, but it was like, there's something about being simply obedient each step along a journey, You have to deviate, you don't have to have big ups and downs. You just that simpleness. Justin, what about you just this year?
I gave up on doing dreams and resolutions.
I gave up on dreams years ago.
Years ago.
I got no dreams.
It's kind of a waste of time, in my opinion. If it's for you, it's for you. But for me, it's not anything. I just kind of go with the flow now. So
gave up on dreams. Gave up on the future.
Yeah,
just dealing
I
with
feel
today.
inspired. I gotta say.
I feel inspired.
Listen, it's taken me different places I never thought I'd go. I didn't dream to go to different places. I did. And it turned out good and turned out bad. And I mean, that's just the way life goes. So I just kind of roll with the where God has
Simple
me going.
obedience. Same thing. I'm okay with that.
It just it makes life a lot easier. I spend less time focusing on me when I'm that way and more time focusing on
being an outlaw radio star.
Yeah, right. Now, I mean, and everybody knows that I am the face now. At least
Clearly.
Bare minimum, the beard of Outlaw Radio.
Mm-hmm.
And
Can we get a zoom in on the gray, please?
This is all COVID stress, Gray, so it's okay.
What about you,
We all got
Isaac?
there.
Yeah, that's a great question. I have mixed feelings, and until my conversation with my boss yesterday, actually, I was not really having any particular resolutions because I don't think that we should start something out by a date. I think it's kind of arbitrary. However, if you think about starting a fire, sometimes you need a little lighter fluid. You know what I mean? If you're not as much of a man like I am not. So
you're going for arson?
I haven't gone to prison yet, is
Nice.
what I'm saying.
I know where you
but
can get a
there's-
flamethrower.
There's still a chance. But seriously, though, we were talking on the phone. He's like, do you have any New Year's resolutions? And, I was like, no, not really. I mean, we're going vegan, mostly plant-based. But that wasn't really a New Year's resolution. And then I was like, do you have any New Year's resolution? And he said, well, I'm going to read through the Bible this year. And then I'm doing this thing where, it's like 40 push-ups and we say the Lord's Prayer and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, this guy's really serious. And
This is your boss.
This is my boss. Yeah, he's a Christian. Super, super good guy.
Is he going to do the reading plan that's Genesis, Exodus, 2 chapters of Leviticus, a little bit of Numbers, and then he starts it all over because he's quit?
No, I
That
don't
reading
think so.
plan?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But that sounds
I've
like
done
That's
that
the
reading
most
plan.
famous
that
reading plan.
sounds like a reading plan I could get into.
That's most people's reading plans. Genesis, Exodus, we're good. Leviticus gets a little weird. Let's go to Numbers.
Right?
And
Right?
then you're like 2 chapters into that, and you're like, I think I'll just do this next year.
Yeah, exactly, because next year's a good time to start stuff. But it really actually convicted me because Alexis had been saying, and I'm actually not that great at reading the Bible on my own, because actually your sermons are... It's hard to understand the Bible without understanding the context. And there's so many references, as Jordan Peterson would say, there's like over 100,000 references within the text to other parts of the text. And so without having that kind of context, which is what makes your sermon so special, is because you explain that. It's hard to read the Bible for me for that reason. And it convicted me because Alexis has been saying you should understand and read the thing that you believe in. And I completely agree. And so,
Nothing like the kind words of a wife.
yes, the kind, encouraging kick in the arse words of your wife.
Yes. You're on the Outlaw Radio Show now. You need to up your game.
Well, you got to have one person who just hasn't been to Israel or China.
Mongolia, not a world traveler, archaeologist.
Yeah, exactly. Someone who I don't have my master's degree, so all I'm saying
See,
is
that's why I don't have any goals anymore. I've already achieved
he's
everything.
achieved everything. That's great. That's great. I love that. But anyway, yeah. So I think that reading the Bible is probably my New Year's resolution. Thanks.
Cool.
Creighton, what about you?
You know what? I actually decided this on New Year's Eve. I've been accused on 2 separate occasions in the last 2 weeks.
Of hating baby Jesus.
No, that's been many more occasions than that over the last couple of months, which is obviously not
wanted to make
true.
sure.
No, but I've been accused on 2 separate occasions by 2 different people in the last couple of weeks that the reason I've been single my whole life is because I've never tried. And so I decided that this year I'll try.
Do you think that there's truth to that?
I am on the fence. I would say that I have tried. So here's what I would say that I have tried, but I would not say that I've had
That you've tried.
that I've like been in a mode of trying more than I have been in a mode of not trying. I've definitely not tried for much more time than I have tried.
That is the weirdest.
I have tried a little bit a couple of
So
times.
what does trying look like for you,
I
Creighton?
have no idea. We're
Okay.
going to have to figure that out.
I will help you figure that out.
Yes. So we're gonna
I
have to
think
figure
we
that
all
out.
will.
But that's
It'll be a
what
collective effort of all that love Creighton.
I think I already started this by doing that Chat GPT.
It's true.
Dating
We've
profile.
got a profile out there for you. Although we're working on Spice Daddy, where Jessica and I are setting him up on it's not really a blind date. We're getting Spice Daddy out
That's right.
mingling.
You need to try too, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys could go on some double dates. You know, I'm just saying.
They could do that. We
could.
really don't want them to do that.
I feel
We
like
should
we're
keep
both
them separated.
I feel like we're both too awkward. Neither of us can anchor.
Yeah,
I feel
no.
like I need to focus more on other things in my life before that, though.
Yeah, we got you, Justin. A good woman will do you well.
That's
Yep.
what I hear.
If
Good
you had like a drug addiction, I would say yes, you should probably focus on that first.
But we're not dealing with that.
You know,
Hey, kick the heroin first, then maybe find a woman. But that's not what we're dealing with, Justin.
you know, I mean, you got a master's degree, you're a master digger. Listen, all I'm saying is you just need
You're
to-
a shoveler.
yes.
I was. I could dig a hole with the best of them.
Man, you could spade it with the rest.
I can see it. You got a
So
little sparkle in your eye.
last time we were together, right before Christmas, we kind of teased a topic. Well, I guess before I even get to that, do we have anything pinging at all?
Yes, I got a couple of comments.
Okay. Again, don't forget, and we'll reiterate this. You can always drop us a text now, 678-8833-316, 678-8833-316. And that comes directly to Justin, Spice Daddy. And that's the easiest, quickest way to get on the air. But we have some comments.
Yes. So we have a Happy New Year from Karen. This is Justin's second favorite Karen.
Gotcha.
So everyone say Happy
Well,
New Year,
that's
Karen.
just because she's second behind his mother.
Right. His mother is also a Karen.
I did introduce them at the last church potluck.
That's correct. Karen to Karen.
Good
These are
move.
my 2 favorite Karens.
We
Happy
also
New
have
Year to Justin's second favorite Karen, by the way.
Yes.
one more time.
Happy New Year to Justin's second favorite Karen.
Thank you.
Yep.
She says thank you, I'm sure.
You will, I guess. Or not. She might be like, yeah, forget you, man.
Also, Miss Ann says good evening and Happy New Year from DNI. So everyone say Happy New Year, Miss Ann.
Absolutely.
Happy New
New
Year.
Miss Ann.
She's saying, praying God's richest blessings to you all this coming year. Great is his faithfulness. Indeed.
Thank you.
Indeed.
You too.
There's no one that can say that better than her other than maybe you.
Yeah, no, Miss Ann is my trachea. She's my trachea buddy. Have you ever heard that?
yes, many
That's the
times from you.
worst.
Yeah, she had COVID, Miss Ann, right before I did, or a couple months, maybe a month before I did. So she's got a trach scar, and I have a trach scar, so we're trachees.
Wow.
So that's our that's our connection.
But yes, those are the comments I got.
Okay, wonderful. So there was a topic that was floated about middle of the previous episode. We really did not have time to try to unpack that question to its fullest extent, and so we teased it a little bit, and here we are, and we've got ample time. So I know that the question kind of originated with you, Isaac. So let's reintroduce it. Let's start fresh, and then we'll just see where the Lord takes us tonight.
Okay, that sounds good. So my wife and I were having a discussion, and somehow or another, I can't remember, how it was brought up, but she said, you know, you're gonna trade me in for a newer model, which again, she didn't say that because I had said something that was just out of the blue. To which I responded like,
And trade you in like now or later?
at some point in time in the future.
Okay, so she's worried about like the present.
No. I don't think so. But maybe, I don't know. But like any man, wise man, I said, I will trade you in when I get to heaven. And
that worked out great.
it did not go over well. There was a little bit of a pause, and in my mind, it didn't seem that long. But what I said was, I'm going to trade you in for Jesus. You know what I mean? Because
that still did not work out very well.
No. Definitely
not
did
at all.
not. Didn't go over the way I thought it would. In my mind, it was a joke. But actually, there was some truth behind it. Not that I was going to trade her in, but legitimately, I don't know that marriage exists beyond Earth. And so that's kind of where my question is, you know, does marriage exist beyond this life? Does it go into eternity? Are we still married? And kind of what does that look like if we are?
Well, let's, so, you know, there's, when you talk about the afterlife, and I don't care what your religious background, persuasion, denomination, what it happens to be, that particular topic, the topic related to marriage, sex, is something that like every religion to an extent has to address. And you get some wild stuff. Like you've got, you know, Muhammad and Islam that promises specifically for the martyr, for those that die in jihad, 70 virgins.
Which will not be virgins for very long. I just want to point out. That's all I'm saying. That's a very temporary thing.
Yeah.
Kind of a one-time thing.
There's not
Exactly.
not a bunch of perpetual virgins.
No, there isn't.
But that's the, you know, great, incentivizing martyrs. Hey, if you die in jihad, holy war, this is what Allah promises you: 70 virgins. You know, so this celestial orgy, so to speak. Not to be outdone, Mormons have kind of their own similar twist on that. Creighton, you want to kind of explain? I know that's one of your favorite topics.
Oh, I do love the Mormons. So I'm going to paraphrase some of this because it's wild. But essentially, if you're a really good Mormon, you get your own planet and your own celestial wife that you get to have lots of babies with to fill this planet, who you will then be Father God to. And basically a cycle will repeat similar to what happened with Father God and Jesus on our planet. And that will repeat ad infinitum.
Quick question while we're on that note. What happens if you're a really good Mormon woman?
I assume that you would be a celestial wife somewhere, but I'm actually not certain. I've never heard anyone ask that question in Mormon circles.
Okay.
Because,
I was just curious.
you know, for reasons.
Women definitely do not matter in that religion.
Not much, or in Islam.
Yeah.
But my point is that there is, that topic is not just unique to Christianity. I'll put it that way. Like that's not like just. So whatever the Christian answer is, and again, people love to pick on Christianity, and never address other religious, you know, presentations of the afterlife. You know, because it's like, oh, we got these problems with Christians. It's like, well, what about Islam or Mormonism? Like, let's be real. That like the Christian explanation of certain things is a lot more rational and even equitable, as opposed to other major religions on the planet. Now, so you're left with this question: what does this specific earthly relationship look like after death and the afterlife? So let's maybe take a couple steps back to try to do the topic justice. Let's talk about just generally, what do human relationships look like at all in the afterlife? The Bible very clearly teaches that the afterlife, that humanity is like there are two different destinies for humanity in the afterlife, two different destinies that look radically different from each other. For the believer, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. We go straight to heaven if you're a Christian. If you are an unbeliever, you rejected Jesus, so you're going to stand in judgment on your own for your own sin. There is a holding place after death called Hades, in which you await what's known as the Great White Throne Judgment, and then ultimately hell. So just very broadly, all humanity, regardless of being married or friends or enemies, or end up two different destinies based upon decision.
What's funny about that is just the idea of waiting is its own form of punishment.
It's its own form.
If you've ever been in a long line, it's just like,
I imagine Hades is for the most part the DMV.
yeah, exactly.
It is.
It's like, what more punishment could you?
You're waiting
imagine?
for your number to be called, and you're like, can we just get it over with?
And it's never gonna come.
No. So now let's set hell aside. In regards to, we don't really have to say, like, will we know each other in heaven? I think the Bible's very clear that yes, we will. How will we know each other in heaven? I think we'll probably look, for the most part, like we look. You got to remember, there's insecurities are gone. Like, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Like, all of the things that we might look at and be insecure about in heaven fall to the wayside.
I'm going to be 5'5".
Creighton's going to be small forever.
I have a question, and maybe it answers the question.
Okay.
I think it's Paul that says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord.
Yes.
Which would be a spiritual aspect of things. So
I don't necessarily think that it's just spiritual. Jesus is the firstborn of the resurrection.
Right. So
and he was physical.
I guess what my question would be, is marriage a physical thing,
so you're jumping
spiritual thing?
I'm
or
trying to work out an
thing?
episode here, Spice Daddy.
I
You're
know,
trying to cut it down
to the
a 5-minute episode.
Well, I know. I
trying to milk this for an episode here.
But also, like,
You're killing me.
At what stage does that come into play? Because when Jesus comes back, we're gonna get new heaven, new earth,
You're
new
still
bodies.
just pushing me here, man. You became the star of the show,
But I just
and now
like,
you're thinking
I
you're
like
just
to throw out all my questions all at once. And
yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. So broadly, we know each other. We're known. My point is that they say the only two things you can take to heaven with you are your friends and your memories. We will have our memories.
Good and bad.
I think so. I do, because again, this gets into like the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind idea. Have you ever seen the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? It's a great movie.
It's a long
Jim
title.
Carrey movie. I think Claire Danes. Is it Claire Danes?
No, it's not Claire Danes. It's Kate Winslet.
Kate Winslet. Great movie, but the whole idea, the premise of the movie is that you could go to this company and they can erase all of your bad memories, or they can erase a specific person from your memories. And so, like, they're in this toxic relationship. Kate Winslet's character is like, she goes and she has basically Jim Carrey erased. And in the process, like, Jim Carrey then goes and does the same thing. But then he begins to realize in the midst of it all that the bad memories are the things that made the good memories even better. And like, you can't detach yourself or relationships from both. It is a brilliant movie. It's one of my favorite movies.
I think it's my favorite
sounds
Jim
good.
Carrey movie.
For sure. Well, maybe Truman Show. That's close.
Those two, yeah.
1 and 2, maybe Ace Ventura.
Similar subject matter.
Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and
style?
Dumber is also there. There's the Grinch. Anyway, my point is that in heaven we'll be known. We'll know. We see Elijah and Moses with Jesus at the Mount of Transfiguration. Not only do they know each other, somehow Peter, James, and John's know who they are. So when we get to eternity, like there is a massive aspect of our earthly relationships that transfer, that continue on. We know, we're known, we have memories. Those memories carry forth. We have friends. We have more friends. And I think that's an important component. Like this is not mysticism. This is not like we enter some grand aura like Buddhism or Hinduism. We're physical beings in a spiritual plane. We're known. We talk. We interact. We eat. We have mansions. And then we serve together in the millennial kingdom. Like there's service. We worship. There is a continuation, my point, of earthly connections in an eternal realm. Now, so that's broad, but that does set some framework that I think is important, because then when we get to marriage, well, what about the marital relationship? Now, the only place within Scripture that there's anything said at all about this particular topic is when the Pharisees come to Jesus with kind of one of those "I gotcha" questions, which are never good to make theology out of, because Jesus isn't doing that. He's actually backdooring their criticisms. Like he's undercutting their question, sometimes even in a comical way. But they come with like this hypothetical scenario about this woman who ends up marrying like 7 different guys. And I might be butchering the analogy, but like this hypothetical scenario, you know, she marries a guy, he dies, she remarries, he dies, like, and so the point is like, well, obviously we're married in eternity. That's their premise. But who is she married to? Because she's had all these husbands. And she hasn't had all these husbands because of like infidelity or extramarital affairs or anything negative to her or even the guys.
Anything that would cause a divorce under God's law.
Right. She's literally widowed. So this is all above board. Now, who is she? Like, who's she married to? And then in response to the question, and again, this is an I got you question. They're trying to peg Jesus. They're trying to get him to say something controversial where they could, you know, manipulate his words. But in response, what does Jesus do? He basically says, hey, y'all don't even understand eternity. Because this is like the angels. No one's given, like basically he equates humanity to the angels in eternity. What does he mean? Like at its core, does he mean there's no marriage in heaven? Well, I think he means that there's no marriage in heaven. I would agree. No one's getting married in heaven.
Do you mean no one is entering into a marriage in heaven?
In heaven. And I think in its most simplistic understanding, what is Jesus? Jesus is saying 2 things, I think. He's saying, y'all have no idea what you're talking about, because eternity is totally different. He doesn't provide an explanation in how it's different. He's just saying the premise to your question is ignorant. You guys don't know what you're even talking about. Like, this question is foolish. If you knew, you wouldn't ask. So, secondly, and I'll get there. Okay. But secondly, and the connection to the angelic host, and again, there's some debate to this. This is just my presentation of it. But when Jesus equates humanity to the angelic being in an eternal context, I don't think it has much to do with marriage. I think it has everything to do with procreation. He's saying, like, in eternity, there's no procreation. There's not be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Like, we have no mention of angels recreating other angels or procreating angels. There was a fixed number of angels. And I think in its most simplistic understanding, Jesus is saying, like, listen, you don't know what you're asking, but the whole way this works in heaven is different because there's no procreation like the angels. Like, we're not married to procreate. Now, I do think that people take this one statement by Jesus and then say, well, there's no marriage in heaven. Or that these human relationships that are formed, unique to all other human connection, somehow don't have any depth of meaning in eternity. That's not what Jesus is saying. And this is the only passage in which Jesus is saying. So in a big roundabout, I'm not sure we really know how exactly this topic works in heaven. And I think anyone that says that they do, even from a biblical standpoint, will only be able to point to this one passage and really have to massage this one passage to reach that definitive conclusion. So we know human relationships continue into heaven. We know human relationships with depth and meaning continue into heaven.
So you just said, though, that human relationships continue. And I also want to bring something that you said earlier, and that is that this is your personal hierarchy of relationships. It's your relationship with God, your relationship with your wife, your relationship with your kids. And so outside of God, the highest order relationship for you is your wife. And so I couldn't imagine in eternity that you wouldn't have that relationship.
So that's you're leading me. You're leading the horse to the trough.
Well, that goes back to my question, though.
And it does, because let's take one step back further, because you guys are tracking with me. This is great. Of all human relationships, the two that are the most unique are the marital relationship and, secondly, the paternal relationship. My kids will be my children forever. It is a distinction that never changes.
Just to be clear, when you say the paternal relation, do you mean the familial relation?
No,
Not
I think
specifically father-son, but
I think
just...
specifically the biological.
What about adopted?
That you're getting into another topic.
I was actually talking about biological. So you wouldn't say the maternal relationship would change.
I think.
Would you?
Well, for argument's sake, not to get, because that can devolve into the weeds. Let's take it, well, maybe one step outside of biology, and let's just purely make it. I am dad to 3 kids. Now I have a genetic connection. The Bible says to the husband and the wife, be fruitful and multiply. Those 3 kids share my biology. I think that there's a unique thing to that. I'm not trying to make an equivalence, because I have dear friends that have 2 adopted girls that are more biologically connected than anything. So like, I don't want to get into that weird thing. That's not the topic here.
That wasn't my question.
Okay.
Forget it.
Then I missed your question.
It's fine.
In the weeds. So there is like my sons will be my sons forever, whether they end up in heaven or hell, and my daughter will be my daughter. And I think that there's sometimes the Bible says there'll be Jesus will dry up all of our tears in heaven, meaning there's tears in heaven, because I think for some people again, if you have one job as a parent, get your kid to heaven. I want, like, my number one job for my 3 kids is I want to spend eternity with them. I don't care if they're valedictorian. I don't care if they're some great baseball player or they're successful. My kids one of my sons could spend 30 years in jail and be executed by lethal injection. But if he's given his life to Jesus, then you know what? I get to spend forever with him. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I have hopes and dreams for my children. Don't get me wrong. And I think that connection will be unique. I will have a unique connection with Quincy, Theo, and Mabel in heaven, different than anybody else in heaven, right? That's just an obvious thing. But so now we take this step back to my wife. Well, what does the Bible say about marriage? What does the Bible say about sex? The entire idea of sex, God took the man, separated him into 2 different genders, male and female, told them to come back together and become one flesh. This is a spiritual, unique, a metaphysical. There's something deep that happens, not just within marriage, but the consummation of marriage, which is sex. It's not just biological. It's not just emotional, which we know both is true. There's a spiritual component, because God said that the 2 shall become one flesh. A unity in the diversity. The only other place that word's really used is when God defines himself as the Lord your God is one. Like he's describing three distinct beings being one within the Godhead, and then he uses the same language with this union between a man and a woman, meaning that marriage, not just the covenantal aspect, but the consummation of sex within the marriage, that there is a spiritual oneness aimed at being achieved. That's why sex is such a sacred thing.
So is that English word flesh? Because when I hear that word flesh, I'm thinking physical.
It's not just flesh.
Is that misinterpreted or mistranslated?
Flesh
or
is
what?
the wrong word to focus on. It's one flesh.
I understand that.
It's a
And
cod.
That goes back to my original question: is marriage a physical thing, a spiritual thing, or a combination of them? Because when I hear one flesh, I think it's physical, and then in heaven, it's a spiritual thing where
it's all of it. No, the Bible seems to indicate that marriage, and specifically, we're going to get into this Sunday with the Song of Solomon, that sex, there is something, there is a spiritual component of sex, of sexual interaction within a covenantal marriage. I would even say beyond that, in general, which is why there's such a safeguard and parameters around how it's supposed to be engaged.
And why it can be
Scripture.
so dangerous to people.
Absolutely. Because it's literally a oneing. It's how the phraseology in the Hebrew, it's a oneing together. It's two becoming one. Not just physically, because that's a temporary thing. Like we're connected, birds and bees, right? And it's not just emotional, which there's all kinds of psychology about what happens in sex and in an emotional, chemical context. But the Bible indicates that there's a spiritual oneing of the man and the woman, that they become one flesh. They're one person. Now, you get into eternity. So it's a temporary wanting. Again, we don't have an answer to it.
You're saying sex is a wanting and not the entirety of marriage?
Sex is the consummation of the wanting. I think it plays a role in the wanting.
Okay.
Which is why homosexuality is a perversion of wanting.
That's a negative wanting.
It's
right there.
it's unity in sameness, not diversity, which is not what God is. Again, there's something about sex and the spiritual wanting that occurs within sexuality, within sexual interaction between a man and a woman. Again, that is spiritual in nature. It's part of the. Okay, so think of it this way. I'm going to get a little too far ahead of Song of Solomon here, but like, God creates, then He makes man in our image, and what does He tell us to do? Two things: tend to His creation, and then what? Something that is completely unique. We're created in His image and likeness, and then He tells us to what? To create in our image and likeness. Mm-hmm. Which is the closest to the divine that we can ever come, and that is by we create. The producing of a child is purely an illustration of a creational process that is already being undertaken. That sex is a creative. That's why we use it in our own vernacular. Making love. What does it even mean? Or love making. Either way, it's creative. Like we're creating something. In having sex, we're making love. We're making a connection. We're forging a bond. We're creative. It's creation. And then God illustrates what's happening spiritually and emotionally by then babies pop out that are what? Half of you and half of her. Like, is there a greater illustration of oneness than literally producing a thing that's half you and half her? That's one of both of you. Like God is sex is not just a biological thing. It's not an emotional thing. There's a spiritual component. So when we get to this bigger question about what happens in eternity, and people want to say, well, marriage, there's no big deal. I have a hard time with that. Again, Adam and Eve, all of that happened before what took place? Sin. So even then, in God's original design, marriage existed.
Some people
In the
would-
garden,
some
marriage
people would-
existed.
Do you think that Eden, and this, I'm not trying to segue, but do you think that Eden was in its own way a heaven, a type of heaven?
It's interesting. We begin in a garden and we end in a city. You look at the bigger arc of Scripture. We begin in a garden, but we end in something even better than a garden.
Okay.
But back to the question of marriage. Well, I've been married and divorced twice, and everybody's Christians. I've been married twice, divorced twice, married a third time. I'm working on it, Creighton. You're giving.
I thought you were talking about you, and I
No.
was like, that math doesn't add up.
No, so like
This is a hypothetical. I'm sorry.
but like you're into the like you can get into the weeds of like, well, then what? I don't know. I don't think the Bible says. Are you and your wife going to be having celestial sex forever? No, I don't think so. I think the Bible. I don't think that you'll care or need it. It won't be for biological purposes or procreation, because I think that that's the like, we're not creating. There's no need to create new people. But, is there not still a connection? Like, let's say Jessica and I are not married in heaven. Will we not still have a unique connection in heaven, different than everybody else's? Interpersonally. Yeah, for sure. We lived our whole life together. And we created 3 kids that are hopefully with us. Like, just the idea that, like, all of this gets, like, kind of flushed away. And if we've become one, how does that, I mean, I don't think that, like, what God brings together somehow in eternity gets ripped apart. I don't see that within a context.
I think
I don't know how it all works, but I'm just saying, like, people will go to that one passage, throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I'm just telling you from a theological, biblical standpoint, I think you got bigger problems. That makes sense. Like, what I'm saying making sense? I'll start with you, Creighton, because you're not married, and we've had similar conversations. But
Yeah, I'm tracking in the way that, like, we're talking about a thing that I don't have a stake in currently. Because
that's going to change this
like,
year.
Like, I don't care if you're
2024,
gonna be,
baby.
Like, I don't care if we're gonna be married in heaven. I'm not married. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. It might at some point. We do have a question from someone online. It's from Alexis. She says, so what about, and I think that you touched on this, but given
Okay.
that you're going around to
yeah, get for it. Go for it.
so what about divorce outside of God's law? For example, if a married couple left each other for no other reason they did not want to be together anymore, is that marital relationship broken? Speaking in the sense that marriage does not continue in heaven.
Okay, well, you take one step back and you break the marital relationship. And the answer to that biblically is yes, you can. Even within the law, there was concessions made for divorce. Jesus affirmed those specifically. And what's interesting, that we can talk about abuse and whatever, but like the universal one is in the instance of sexual infidelity. Why? Well, because something has been done that completely attacks and erodes the core oneness that is essential to marriage, which is why even Jesus is like, if that happens, yeah, you're free to leave. So there is I guess within, if you want to simplify the question, and sometimes simplifying it helps you get to at least an answer. It doesn't answer all of your questions, but does get to an answer. What I would say, let's forget about the divorcees. Jessica and I are going to live the next 50 years happily married, raise kids, have grandbabies, and we're going to die together holding hands. What about us? There's no cutting and pasting here. When we get to eternity, what are we? Are we just friends and buddies? Or is there something, or is there something from this life that transitions? I don't see anything in the scriptures that say it doesn't. Now, yeah, you can get into divorce and all kinds of other complicated things. Forget about it. Simplify it. What about that?
I mean, at that point, it makes sense that to go back to the Jesus being like, you guys just have no idea what you're talking about. You're really trying to understand something that is outside of you, and it's really not. You don't know it, because I do get that.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess all of these questions do kind of come back to, what about a woman who's been widowed 7 times? And it's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, just forget about it, because you're literally talking from true ignorance.
And which is why for me, it's like, well, let's just get to, like, let's remove the complication. Let's go to the most simplistic thing you can get to. Man and woman give their life to Jesus. They get married. They have sex for 70 years. They produce some kids. They love each other. Their faces emulate each other because they've been looking into each other's eyes forever. You know, they laugh, they cry, they have all this experience. They get to heaven. All that's gone. Or is there some depth to it that we don't fully understand, but still exists? Again, I'd have a hard time saying it doesn't exist. That's my point.
If I'm using your premise, and I'm not, I actually do kind of agree, because I'm just thinking about St. Augustine, and what he was saying about the higher orders of love. And I think that one of the common issues that we struggle with today is our misordered love. And once we get to heaven, then I feel like all of the loves order themselves properly.
Okay, keep going. I like this.
And then we have God, obviously number one, and then just wife, kids, hopefully everyone made it into heaven. And from there, it's like, if that is the proper ordering, the proper structure of love, then why wouldn't the relationship persist there, if that's the structure of love? And I would almost argue now that I'm thinking, why wouldn't sex exist there? Because it is a part of the relationship.
Well, it's a part of it is part of the relationship. I would say that there's no evidence of that at all.
It doesn't say it doesn't, though.
That's true.
So you're saying there's a chance.
What you're telling me is there's a chance.
It also doesn't say that we'll be token out on ayahuasca with Aaron Rodgers either. That doesn't necessarily mean because it doesn't say.
I have an argument for it.
It doesn't just because it doesn't say we're.
How many of Solomon's wives do you think are in heaven with him?
All of them.
I have a solid argument.
All of them, and he's going to have to live with them forever, and it's a little taste of hell for him.
I have a solid argument. Well, I have a...
Because there's people that are like, wait, no, I want out. Death is... I only made a vow till death do us part. Right. Come on, Zach.
So, like, I get the idea that that sex is the biological aspect of it.
It's not just the biological.
No. I know, but you're saying... Again, we're getting into the weeds of a thing, but like Jesus in his glorified body still ate, and that is purely biological.
No, listen.
So we could definitely be taking a physical body into heaven. We could be taking a lot of that kind of.
The closest to heaven Jessica gets.
2 minutes in heaven is better than 1 minute in heaven.
So I mean, a little taste of heaven on earth. You know what I mean? Some business socks. That's going to get me in total trouble.
Reference.
This is going to be the one thing that Jessica actually watches.
I don't understand that. Can you explain that?
It's a Flight of the Conchords reference. I'll show you the video
This is Spice
later.
Daddy finally jumping in here. I'll break this down for you.
Please.
So,
because I didn't understand your comments.
So the one thing better than 1 minute in heaven is 2 minutes in heaven, because most men are really only able to endure about 2 minutes or so of sexual intercourse before the rocket has left the pocket.
What is that? I'm not
Now you're
I'm not going to push any further.
Yep.
All right, well, I found our first short, boys.
My dad. I'm not kidding. Years ago, my dad did a men's group Bible study at a camp, and the title of the message was "You have a rocket in your pocket."
I remember that.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And he talked about like, hey, you have a rocket in your pocket. What's the most important thing?
Keeping your rocket in your pocket.
No, don't ignite it. You have a rocket in your pocket. And the moment you ignite it, you ain't gonna contain it.
You're not getting it back in the pocket.
That's not gonna. The rocket won't stay in the pocket if you light the fuse. So the goal is don't light the fuse.
Elon Musk has kind of revolutionized reusable.
Well,
I'm just saying.
well, and to be fair, Jeff Bezos, this is more of like emphasize the rocket in the pocket and the design of his the Blue Origin. Have you ever seen that?
Yes, I have.
Oh, it's terrible.
So I do have him on the.
You know, Elon Musk, they redesigned their rocket just because the Blue Origin rocket looked like, what was it? The Austin Powers movie.
Mm-hmm. No, it's Dictator. It's a Sacha Baron Cohen.
They redesigned it just to make it not look like what it looked like.
Yes.
That is. Go ahead.
Yes,
I was going to say, so more seriously, I guess. Do you think, because
more seriously, this was your fault.
Right, I know, sorry, it happens. Things just slip out of my mouth.
Explain that very sexual comment to me in detail, please.
So, like, do you think that's why Satan pretty immediately attacked that aspect of humanity with not just homosexuality, but you have the Nephilim and stuff like that, to where... Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, you can go one step beyond that. Like you could make the argument that that the the original temptation situation, what was Satan really ultimately playing on? He was playing on the marital relationship, because it wasn't the fact that Eve took the fruit, ate of it, because Adam the man could have said no. Like we're told that then Adam ate of the fruit. Eve was deceived, but then Adam killed himself because he would rather die with a woman. Like there's even a deeper perversion to the original temptation where Satan is playing on, like, Adam's job is to protect his wife and to safeguard her, and she's alone with the serpent, you know? And it's like, even in the original temptation scenario, like, sin, destruction, it all came in because a marriage got attacked. You know what I mean? Like, so it even goes back. I'm agreeing with you. I think it goes back to the origin.
So I think that kind of answers my original question: is it spiritual or physical? And I think it's a combination of two, which translates to heaven, because Satan wouldn't have attacked it if it didn't hurt at. Yeah, he loves to kill, steal, and destroy, but like the one thing that would hurt God is like going after the spiritual aspect of things. For sure. So.
I think that's insightful, and I would agree with that. Like, I think that there's something deep to that. And then what was the first thing that man created? A murderer. You know? I mean, it didn't take very long to illustrate the corrosive nature of what Satan had done, of what sin had wrought. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. So we're at 9:00. Any quick follow-up? Anything online, Creighton? What do we got?
I have another question from Alexis that should be pretty easy to get through. She said, does it say anything about eating in heaven? So if you'd like to go ahead and describe the marriage supper.
Yeah, marriage supper of the Lamb. First thing we
have
do.
Hot sauce there.
Hot sauce.
For certain.
You're in charge of that.
Yeah, no sriracha shortage there. You know what I mean?
No sriracha. No, the marriage supper of the Lamb. There's absolutely eating and
the finest meats and meads, if I remember correctly. Meats and wines, maybe.
And then, but I mean, the other illustration of that is just Jesus on the road to Emmaus, where he broke bread. Mm-hmm. You know, he ate. He cooked fish on the shore. Again, we try to figure out what eternity, what resurrected body looks like.
Do you think when we're
we
having
look at Jesus.
Do you think when we're having wine at the marriage feast that the Baptists are going to be angry and think they're in hell because of it?
I hope so. I think that'd be pretty funny.
Speaking of Justin, the last comment we have was from a little while ago, but I didn't get to it. This is from his favorite Karen, and it says, "Yes, we need a new daughter-in-law."
And a new grandbaby.
And some new
Coming
grandbabies.
2025, baby.
She heard. Oh, so you had not mentioned anything of this to your mother.
Of course not.
Okay, good. I'm glad that your mom's getting breaking news on your life. So when are you free? Like in the next 2 weeks?
Probably not.
Oh, you're going to be.
Probably never in the next 2 weeks.
This is gonna happen, man. You're in trouble.
I'm not looking forward to any of that.
You will
you
be.
are.
You will.
Yeah, you are. You're blushing even right now on camera. Even with a white balance on, you're getting a little
Now you're on
rosy
screen.
there. Yeah. Hey, Creighton, how you feeling? We good?
Yeah, I think we're good. Mark Lawson says barbecue will be there. We know he loves the aroma. True.
Also true. Now,
Absolutely true.
I do love the fact that God created the entire this is how I want to be worshipped. Cook meat
Yes.
and
Mix.
let the aroma come
what
up
were
to
you
me.
saying about going vegan?
Yeah,
That's very anti-Jesus of you.
I don't think it is because it was a garden and there's lots of fruits and vegetables in a garden. So.
Didn't eat meat until after the flood.
But then we did.
But then we did.
And then Jesus did. And then there's lamb, the marriage supper of the
There's
lamb.
been way more meat-eating years than there have been non-meat eating.
All I'm going to say
Been
is
way
an
more sinful
animal,
years
an
than
animal was
non-sinful
only
years.
killed after sin. So what does that mean?
That being said, I'm not giving up meat. I understand your point. I don't
just saying.
disagree with you, but I'm not giving it up. I have an addiction.
I think there's
Well,
probably
you know what? You know what? What I eat kills what you eat.
That's true. Although I think McRibs are restructured, so that's all I'm
just
saying
help-
about that.
I'm just helping to rid the world of cow farts, so which destroys
All that
the
methane.
environment. Mhm.
Whatever. This is we're rolling off.
Yeah, we
here.
need to go.
Creighton, let everybody know kind of the generalities, and then I'll take us out.
The generalities. Hey, thanks for watching the Outlaw Radio Show. We're a podcast and a YouTube channel, and we're working on things.
You can reach out to us 2 different ways, 678-883-3316, which is our text line. You can also drop us an email, which is at popecreighton@gmail.com.
Those generalities.
popecreighton@gmail.com. Again, this episode will be podcasted tomorrow, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasting. If you're listening, come join us, 8 p.m. Wednesday night, outlawradio.live, which is our YouTube channel, or facebook.com/The Radio Outlaw. May you guys have a wonderful new year, and we will see you guys next week. I'm going to hit some music, kind of stare awkwardly at the camera.
Hey, thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. We really enjoy doing this.
God bless. See you guys.